This is a story about an American pilot who, flying over Donegal in November 1941, discovered he had engine trouble and realised that he would ultimately crash unless he bailed out. So he pulled back his canopy, undid his safety harness and sent a final message: "I'm going over the side." He then bailed out and landed into what is one of the most bizarre stories of World War II.
The 23-year-old pilot was Roland "Bud" Wolfe, originally from Nebraska. He was a member of number 133 Squadron RAF, the famous Eagle Squadron, made up of US pilots. Because he joined the British war effort while the US was still neutral, he was stripped of his US citizenship. After bailing out, he was caught 8 miles from his RAF station at Eglinton, now the city of Derry Airport. Derry was in UK territory, but he landed in neutral Ireland. Captured crews, both Allied and German, were always treated with good Irish hospitality.
Ultimately, Bud ended up here, at the Curragh of Kildare, to be interred in Camp Number 2, called K-Lines, at the HQ of the Irish Army.
The internment camp, or K-Lines, was built in 1939 in the east side of the Curragh camp. Its main function was the internment of any servicemen of either Axis or Allied forces. It would prevent their escape and thus prevent them returning to their respective countries and rejoining the war effort. In appearance, K-Lines was very similar to most POW camps scattered throughout Europe at the time. It consisted of a rectangular perimeter fence made of barbed wire. One compound was occupied by German forces, known as G Camp, and the other occupied by the Allied forces, known as B Camp. Just a thin line of corrugated iron separated both sides, as can be seen behind these German officers. The camp was initially run as a typical POW camp, but over time it became more relaxed.
So a parole system was introduced that allowed all the internees to leave the camp unsupervised, as long as they signed a parole statement. And this is a parole statement here. It reads, "I hereby solemnly give my word of honour that I will return to my quarters at the Curragh camp by X hours or X date, that while on parole I will not make or endeavour to make any arrangements whatever, or seek or accept any assistance whatever," etc., etc. And this parole statement gave Bud Wolfe an idea.
Such was the honour of these men to obey the rules, that the British decided that the first legitimate escape effort would be made at night, to scale the perimeter fences using wire cutters and prefabricated metal ladders. As described by an RAF pilot at the time, quote, "The affair descended into a Keystone Cops event. The wire cutting did not proceed smoothly and the noise was greater than anticipated. The ladder party went into action too quickly and ended up in a pile-up at the outer wire, leading to more noise, and the alarm was raised. The Irish sentries and reinforcements quickly went into action, and at the same time the next door German neighbours got up on the roofs of their huts and joined in the noise with loud heckling and jeering. Eventually, peace was restored with lots of bruised egos and aching bodies on both sides." Another plan was to dig a tunnel under the wire, but word of it got to the British ambassador in Dublin, who, afraid of the political fallout, told the Irish authorities, who discovered the tunnel plot. In the interim, the internees were allowed to play golf at the course beside the camp, attend local horse races, or visit pubs and dances in the locality. The fact that the Allied airmen lived in relative comfort weighed heavy on them as their comrades fought and died in combat missions. And Bud Wolfe, the only American in the camp, was frustrated by it all, and within 12 days of incarceration, made his own escape.
So Bud's plan was very simple. It was to simply walk out the front gate. And this is how he did it. He went into the parole hut and he signed his parole statement saying that he would give his word of honour that he would return. And he walked out the front gate. But moments later he returned on the excuse that he had forgotten his gloves. So he went back into his parole hut, came back out, and it was the duty of the camp guards to get him to sign a new parole statement, which they didn't do. And so Bud walked straight out the gate and legitimately, in his mind, escaped.
He then caught a bus to Dublin, then a train to Belfast. He was now in UK territory and had made it. Then he travelled to his base in Derry, but wait for it. He was arrested by the British military police and returned to the Curragh camp for political reasons. He would spend another 2 years here until his release in 1943. He then joined the United States Army Air Force and shot down 4 German fighters during World War II, just one short of being an ace.
In 1998, an international film was made about the Curragh camp or K-lines during World War II. It was panned by the critics. One of the reasons given was the fact that the storyline was just too fantastic to be believed. It just goes to show that sometimes truth really can be stranger than fiction.
In 2011, after many previous attempts, Wolfe's Spitfire was recovered from a bog in Donegal. Among the items recovered were 6 of the Spitfire's Browning machine guns, which the Irish Army restored and fired once again after 70 years.
Bud would retire a lieutenant colonel with 12,000 flying hours and over 900 combat missions in both Korea and Vietnam. He died in Florida in 1994.